The cracks begin to show. Charles Matthews always believed life was a series of calculated steps, each leading closer to success. Born into a working-class family in a small Ohio town, his childhood was marked by long hours in his father's modest repair shop and the rhythmic hum of his mother's sewing machine. The Matthews family didn't have much, but they had integrity, discipline, and dreams of something better. For young Charles, those dreams were a lifeline. From an early age, Charles showed an uncanny ability to think ahead. He worked tirelessly alongside his parents, learning the value of hard work and the cost of sacrifice. While his friends played basketball on cracked neighborhood courts, Charles buried himself in books and homework. By high school, his efforts paid off. He earned a scholarship to a prestigious university, leaving behind a life of his small-town upbringing for the possibilities of the big city. At university, Charles's world expanded. The stately lecture halls, the sharp professors, and the ambitious peers from all walks of life ignited a fire within him. He was determined to succeed, though he battled feelings of inadequacy at every turn. Late nights turned into early mornings as he pored over textbooks and chased his dream of financial independence. It wasn't easy, but Charles was nothing if not resilient. After graduation, Charles dived headfirst into real estate. The first few years tested him. He faced rejection after rejection, working long hours to prove himself in a competitive industry. Yet, as time went on, his name became synonymous with hard work and innovation. By 40, Charles had built an empire. He was a respected leader in the real estate world, with a sprawling mansion in an exclusive neighborhood, luxury cars, and an enviable bank account. From the outside, Charles Matthews had it all. But success came at a cost. Lucy Carter entered Charles's life during his early days in Chicago. She was a nursing student with a love for gardening and a contagious laugh that could light up any room. The two bonded over shared dreams and late-night conversations about the future. Lucy believed in Charles even when he doubted himself. She stood by him as he clawed his way up the ladder, providing comfort and stability during the chaos of his ascent. 12 years into their marriage, the cracks began to show. While Charles chased deals and expanded his business empire, Lucy longed for simplicity, quiet evenings, shared meals, and meaningful conversations. Her attempts to reconnect with Charles were met with distracted nods and broken promises. "Just one more year," he would say. "Then we'll have time." But the years stretched into decades, and the time Lucy yearned for never came. Charles, too, felt the growing distance. He loved Lucy in his way, but he couldn't stop the relentless drive to achieve more, to become more. In his mind, providing a life of luxury was the ultimate act of love. But the lavish house and expensive gifts did little to bridge the emotional gap between them. Charles found himself restless, haunted by a vague sense of dissatisfaction he couldn't articulate. He began to wonder if success had come at the expense of his happiness. One evening, as Charles stood on the balcony of their mansion, gazing at the twinkling city lights below, he felt the weight of his choices pressing down on him. The sprawling estate that symbolized his achievements now felt suffocating, like a gilded cage. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to question, was this the life he truly wanted? Lucy noticed the changes in Charles but kept her feelings to herself. She focused on her small joys, her garden, her books, and the occasional visits from close friends. She tried to ignore the growing emptiness in their marriage, hoping things would improve. But deep down, she knew something had shifted irrevocably. The turning point came during a networking event in New York City. Charles, ever the charismatic businessman, was mingling with influential figures when he met Sophia Green. Young, ambitious, and brimming with confidence, Sophia was everything Charles once admired in himself. Their connection was instant. For the first time in years, Charles felt alive. Sophia saw in Charles a man of power and influence, but also someone carrying an unspoken vulnerability. She found his quiet intensity captivating, and their conversations quickly moved from professional to personal. What began as innocent meetings soon grew into something more. Charles was drawn to Sophia's energy, her optimism, and the sense of possibility she brought into his life. Lucy sensed the shift before Charles admitted it. His late nights became more frequent, his demeanor more distant. She confronted him one evening, asking if there was someone else. Charles hesitated before answering, his silence betraying him. The truth was undeniable. Their marriage was no longer the partnership it once was. For Lucy, the revelation was devastating. She had built her life around Charles, believing they were a team. The betrayal cut deep, not just because of the affair, but because it shattered her belief in the man she thought she knew. Charles, too, was conflicted. He didn't set out to hurt Lucy, but he couldn't ignore the pull he felt toward Sophia. He convinced himself that this new relationship was a chance to rediscover the person he used to be, the person he had lost in his pursuit of success. The day Charles packed his bags and left their home was overcast, the skies heavy with impending rain. Lucy watched in silence as he loaded his belongings into the car. She didn't beg him to stay. She had too much pride for that. But the pain in her chest was unbearable. As Charles drove away, she stood at the doorway, her heart breaking for the life they had built together, and for the life they had lost. Charles moved into a sleek apartment in the heart of the city, a symbol of his new chapter. Sophia was waiting for him, her vibrant presence a balm to his fractured ego. The excitement of their relationship consumed him, offering a distraction from the guilt and regret that lingered in the background. Meanwhile, Lucy retreated into herself. The house they had shared felt empty without Charles. Every corner held a memory, every room a reminder of what once was. Friends reached out, but Lucy struggled to find the energy to respond. Her world had crumbled, and she didn't know how to rebuild it. Yet, even in her darkest moments, a spark of resilience began to emerge. Encouraged by her best friend, Caroline, Lucy decided to take control of her life. She signed up for photography classes, an art form she had always admired but never pursued. Slowly, she began to rediscover herself, finding beauty in the everyday moments she captured through her camera lens. As months passed, Lucy's pain gave way to strength. She started to see her separation from Charles not as an end, but as a beginning, a chance to redefine who she was and what she wanted from life. And while Charles was consumed by the thrill of his new relationship, Lucy quietly began the journey of healing and self-discovery, unaware that their paths were destined to cross again in ways neither of them could foresee. Rediscovering life's colors. The sun rose early on Lucy Carter's small suburban home, casting soft, golden light across the garden she had so lovingly tended. It had been months since Charles left, and though the initial sting of heartbreak had dulled, the weight of his absence lingered like a shadow in the corners of her mind. Yet something was different now. That morning, as Lucy watered the roses, her favorite flower, their blooms of vibrant pink, she felt a shift within herself. The woman who once devoted herself entirely to her husband's world now stood on the brink of rediscovering her own. Her mornings became sacred rituals, where she allowed herself to bask in the quiet beauty of her surroundings. The garden, once a backdrop for shared moments with Charles, became her sanctuary. She pruned the hedges, planted new bulbs, and took photographs of her progress. Each snapshot became a metaphor for her own transformation, a slow, deliberate reclamation of her identity. Encouraged by Caroline, Lucy continued her photography classes, immersing herself in the art with a passion she hadn't felt in years. Her instructor, a gentle yet perceptive older man named Mr. Thomas, often singled out her work for its depth and emotional honesty. "Lucy," he said one evening after class, holding up one of her photographs. It was an image of an abandoned bench in a park, the sunlight filtering through the trees to cast intricate shadows across the empty seat. "This tells a story, not just of absence, but of hope. You have a gift for seeing beauty where others might not." Those words stayed with her, giving her the confidence to take her hobby more seriously. Lucy began documenting her life through her lens, not just the quiet moments in her garden, but the vibrant chaos of the local farmers' market, the playful antics of children in the park, and the raw emotions on the faces of strangers in passing. Her work gained recognition in small local circles, and before long, she was invited to display her photographs at a community art fair. The fair was both exhilarating and terrifying. Lucy spent days preparing her exhibit, carefully selecting and framing her best pieces. She didn't expect much, perhaps a few kind comments or a polite nod from attendees, but the response was overwhelming. People lingered at her booth, drawn to the emotion and authenticity of her work. By the end of the day, she had sold several prints and received inquiries about future projects. For the first time in years, Lucy felt a surge of pride, not as someone's wife or supporter, but as an artist in her own right. Meanwhile, Charles's life with Sophia unfolded in stark contrast to Lucy's quiet resurgence. The newness of their relationship had initially been intoxicating. Sophia was everything he thought he wanted: ambitious, vibrant, and unrelentingly optimistic. Together, they explored cities, attended lavish galas, and indulged in spontaneous weekend getaways. On paper, it was the perfect escape from the monotony that had plagued his marriage. But cracks began to show. Sophia's ambition, which Charles had once admired, now felt suffocating. She pushed him to invest in joint ventures, to buy a penthouse together, to plan a future that seemed more like a business strategy than a life. Her energy, once a source of inspiration, became a whirlwind that left Charles feeling unmoored. Their arguments grew more frequent, small disagreements escalating into heated exchanges. "You're holding back, Charles," Sophia said one evening after an argument over dinner plans turned into a discussion about their future. "You're afraid to commit, and it's not fair to me." Charles didn't have an answer. Deep down, he knew she was right. But the real reason for his hesitation wasn't fear of commitment. It was the unresolved feelings that lingered like ghosts from his past. Thoughts of Lucy crept into his mind at the most unexpected times. A scent that reminded him of her perfume, a song they once danced to, even the way sunlight filtered through his apartment window. All of it brought memories rushing back. He told himself he had moved on, but the truth was harder to ignore. One afternoon, while scrolling through social media, Charles stumbled upon a post that stopped him cold. It was a photograph of Lucy at the art fair, standing beside one of her framed pieces. Her smile was radiant, her posture confident. She looked like a woman transformed. The caption, written by Caroline, read, "Celebrating Lucy Carter's incredible talent and first public exhibit. The beginning of something amazing." Charles stared at the screen, a strange mix of emotions washing over him. Pride, nostalgia, and regret swirled together, leaving him unsettled. Lucy's smile was different from the one he remembered. It wasn't the polite, practiced expression she often wore during their last years together. This was a genuine smile, unguarded and full of life. For the first time, Charles wondered if Lucy might be better off without him. While Charles grappled with his inner turmoil, Lucy's world continued to expand. The success of the art fair opened new doors, leading to collaborations with local galleries and commissions from private collectors. Each opportunity brought her closer to a version of herself she hadn't known existed. But life, as always, had its surprises. One crisp autumn morning, Lucy woke up feeling unusually tired. She chalked it up to the demands of her busy schedule, but when the fatigue persisted, accompanied by nausea, she decided to visit her doctor. What she learned during that appointment would change everything. Lucy was pregnant, and not just with one child. She was carrying twins. The news left her stunned. At first, she wasn't sure how to feel. Fear, excitement, and uncertainty flooded her all at once. She thought of Charles, wondering if she should tell them, but the idea of reopening that chapter of her life was daunting. She had worked so hard to move forward, to rebuild herself. Would involving him undo all her progress? Caroline, ever the steady presence in Lucy's life, was the first person she confided in. Over cups of tea in Lucy's cozy kitchen, They discussed the challenges and joys that lay ahead. Caroline reassured her that she was strong enough to face this new chapter, with or without Charles's involvement. "You've come so far, Lucy," Caroline said, reaching across the table to hold her friend's hand. "This isn't an ending. It's a beginning. Those babies are going to have the best mom in the world." Lucy nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. She resolved to focus on preparing for her children, channeling her energy into creating a warm, loving home. She transformed the spare bedroom into a nursery, painting the walls a soft, calming shade and filling it with carefully chosen furniture. Each detail, from the hand-sewn curtains to the framed photographs on the walls, reflected the love she already felt for her unborn children. As Lucy's belly grew, so did her sense of purpose. The twins became her anchor, giving her a clarity and strength that cut through any lingering heartache. And though the journey ahead was uncertain, she faced it with a quiet determination that surprised even herself. For Charles, however, the storm was only beginning to brew. The weight of choices. Charles Matthews sat in the sleek confines of his office, the floor-to-ceiling windows offering a breathtaking view of the Manhattan skyline. It was late evening, and the city buzzed with life below him. On the desk lay contracts requiring his signature, lucrative deals that would further cement his status as a powerhouse in real estate. Yet his thoughts were elsewhere. The image of Lucy at the art fair lingered in his mind like an unshakable melody. Her smile, radiant and genuine, haunted him. It wasn't just the smile, it was what it represented. Lucy had found a way to thrive without him, to rediscover her passion and purpose. Charles felt an inexplicable pang of regret, a gnawing sense that he had abandoned something irreplaceable. His relationship with Sophia had also begun to falter. What once felt like a thrilling escape from his former life now seemed hollow. The arguments between them had become more frequent, their connection fraying under the weight of unmet expectations. Sophia wanted more commitment, more shared ventures, more assurances about their future. Charles, burdened by his own doubts and unresolved feelings for Lucy, found himself increasingly resistant. One evening, after yet another heated argument with Sophia, Charles decided to take a walk. The air was crisp, the streets bustling with people hurrying to their destinations. As he wandered aimlessly, his feet carried him to a park he hadn't visited in years. It was a place he and Lucy used to frequent during their early days in Chicago. The memories hit him like a tidal wave, the quiet picnics under the shade of the trees, the laughter shared over silly inside jokes, the dreams they had whispered to each other when the world felt full of possibilities. Charles sat on a bench, his hands clasped together, and let the memories wash over him. He couldn't deny it anymore. He missed Lucy, not just as a person, but as the grounding force in his life. She had been his anchor, the one who believed in him when no one else did. And now, she was gone, thriving in a life he wasn't part of. For the first time, Charles allowed himself to wonder if leaving Lucy had been a mistake. Meanwhile, Lucy was navigating her own whirlwind of emotions. The twins had become her world, their tiny movements a constant reminder of the life growing within her. She spent her days preparing for their arrival, balancing her burgeoning photography career with the demands of impending motherhood. The nursery, once a simple spare room, had transformed into a cozy haven, complete with soft pastel colors, handmade quilts, and shelves lined with children's books. But as the months passed, Lucy couldn't shake the thought of Charles. She hadn't told him about the pregnancy, unsure of how he would react, or if she even wanted him involved. Part of her feared that reaching out would disrupt the peace she had worked so hard to find. Another part of her, a smaller, quieter part, wondered if Charles deserved to know. After all, these were his children too. Caroline, ever the voice of reason, encouraged Lucy to consider what was best for the twins. "You don't have to make any decisions right now," Caroline said one evening as they sat on Lucy's porch, sipping tea. "But you should think about it. Charles might have made mistakes, but he's still their father. And you're stronger now, Lucy, you can handle whatever comes your way." Lucy nodded, her hands resting on her growing belly. She knew Caroline was right, but the thought of facing Charles again filled her with a mix of dread and uncertainty. Still, the idea lingered in her mind, growing harder to ignore with each passing day. Charles, on the other hand, was beginning to unravel. The glossy veneer of his life with Sophia had worn thin, revealing the cracks beneath. Their arguments had escalated, and Charles found himself retreating more and more into his own thoughts. One night, after a particularly explosive fight, Sophia accused him of still being in love with Lucy. "Why don't you just admit it, Charles?" she shouted, her voice sharp and biting. "You're not over her. You never were." Her words struck a nerve. Charles didn't respond, but his silence spoke volumes. Sophia stormed out, leaving Charles alone in their shared apartment. He poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared out at the city lights, his mind racing. Was she right? Had he been fooling himself all along? The next morning, Charles woke up with a newfound sense of clarity. He needed answers. He needed closure, and above all, he needed to see Lucy. A week later, Charles found himself standing outside Lucy's home. The small, charming house looked much the same as he remembered, though the garden seemed more vibrant than ever. He hesitated before knocking, unsure of how Lucy would react to seeing him again. When the door opened, he was greeted not by Lucy, but by Caroline. "Charles," she said, her tone guarded but polite. "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to Lucy," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil churning inside him. "Please." Caroline studied him for a moment before stepping aside to let him in. She led him to the living room, where Lucy sat on the couch, her hands resting protectively on her belly. When she saw Charles, her eyes widened in surprise. "Charles," she said softly, her voice a mixture of shock and wariness. "What are you doing here?" He hesitated, searching for the right words. "I saw the pictures from your art fair. You looked happy. I just wanted to see you, to talk." Lucy's gaze hardened slightly. "It's been months, Charles." "Why now?" "Because I can't stop thinking about you," he admitted, his voice tinged with vulnerability. "About us. I made a mistake, Lucy. I thought I needed something different, but all I did was lose the best thing in my life." For a long moment, Lucy didn't say anything. She studied Charles, trying to gauge the sincerity in his words. Part of her wanted to believe him, to hope that he had changed. But another part of her, the part that had fought so hard to rebuild her life, refused to let her forget the pain he had caused. "I don't know if I can forgive you, Charles," she said finally, her voice steady. "You left. You chose someone else. And now you want to come back. It's not that simple." "I know," he said, his shoulders slumping. "I know I don't deserve it. But I needed to tell you how I feel, even if it's too late." Before Lucy could respond, the twins kicked, a sudden and forceful movement that made her wince slightly. Charles noticed immediately, his eyes widening in shock. "Lucy, are you?" His voice trailed off as he pieced it together. "I'm pregnant," she said quietly, meeting his gaze. "With twins." Charles' expression shifted from shock to something deeper, an overwhelming mix of emotion that he couldn't quite process. For the first time in months, he felt a flicker of hope. But whether that hope would lead to redemption or further heartbreak was a question only time could answer. Confronting the past. The room fell silent as Charles stared at Lucy, his expression a mixture of disbelief, joy, and regret. The words, "I'm pregnant," echoed in his mind, each syllable carving through his emotions like a scalpel. His gaze dropped instinctively to her belly, where her hands rested protectively. He felt a strange, unfamiliar weight in his chest, something between longing and shame. "Twins," he finally managed, his voice barely above a whisper. Lucy nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yes, twins." Charles took a step closer, but Lucy's posture stiffened, her body instinctively leaning away. He stopped, sensing her unease. Lucy, I don't even know what to say. Are they mine? The question felt clumsy, but he needed to know. Yes, Charles. They're yours, she said firmly, her tone laced with both exhaustion and resolve. But let's get one thing clear. I didn't tell you because I didn't think you deserved to know. Not after what you did. Her words cut deep, but Charles knew he had no right to protest. He had walked away from their life. From her, without a second thought. Now, standing in her living room, he felt the full weight of his choices bearing down on him. I'm sorry, Lucy, he said quietly, his voice heavy with sincerity. I don't even know if that means anything to you, but I am. I thought I was chasing happiness, but all I did was destroy the best part of my life. And now I've missed so much. Lucy sighed, leaning back against the couch. Her hands absent-mindedly traced circles on her belly as she considered his words. You're right, Charles. You did miss a lot, and I've had to face this on my own. I had to rebuild everything after you left. I don't know if there's any space for you in this life I've created. Charles wanted to argue, to plead for a chance to make things right, but he could see the steel in her eyes. She had changed. The Lucy sitting before him wasn't the same woman he had left months ago. She was stronger, more confident, and fiercely protective of the life she was building. I don't want to disrupt your life, Lucy, he said, taking the seat across from her. I just want to be there for the twins. To be the father they deserve. I can't change what I did, but I want to be part of their lives, if you'll let me. Lucy's expression softened, though her guard didn't drop entirely. She had spent months preparing to raise these children alone, accepting the reality that Charles might never come back. Now, here he was, asking for a role in their lives. It was almost too much to process. I'll think about it, she said finally, her voice measured. But I won't let you come in and out of their lives whenever it's convenient for you. If you want to be involved, it has to be consistent. They deserve that. Charles nodded, relief washing over him. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I understand, he said. Thank you, Lucy. I'll prove to you, and to them, that I mean it. The conversation shifted to practical matters. Lucy explained her preparations for the twins, her doctor's appointments, and the support she had received from Caroline. As they talked, Charles couldn't help but notice the warmth in Lucy's voice when she spoke about her unborn children. It was a side of her he hadn't seen in years, a tenderness that reminded him of the woman he had fallen in love with all those years ago. When Charles left that evening, he felt a flicker of hope. He knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but for the first time in months, he felt like he had a purpose beyond himself. The twins represented a second chance, not just to be a father, but to reconnect with the parts of himself he had lost. Lucy's journey. The days that followed were a whirlwind for Lucy. She continued preparing for the twins, balancing her photography career with the demands of impending motherhood. But Charles's return had thrown her emotions into turmoil. Part of her was angry at him for leaving, for betraying their vows, and for thinking he could walk back into her life as though nothing had happened. But another part of her, the part that still remembered the man she had loved, wondered if it was possible for people to truly change. Caroline remained a steadfast presence, helping Lucy navigate the complexities of her feelings. You don't have to decide everything right now, Caroline reminded her one afternoon as they folded baby clothes in the nursery. Take it one step at a time. Charles has a lot to prove, and it's okay to let him earn your trust again, if that's what you want. Lucy nodded, grateful for Caroline's wisdom. She knew she had to focus on what was best for the twins, even if it meant giving Charles a chance to be part of their lives. But she also knew she had to protect herself. She couldn't afford to let him hurt her again. Charles's efforts. Charles threw himself into preparing for fatherhood with the same determination that had driven his career. He attended parenting classes, read books about raising twins, and even sought advice from colleagues who were parents. Though he felt out of his depth, he was determined to prove to Lucy and to himself that he was serious about this new chapter in his life. His relationship with Sophia, however, continued to deteriorate. The arguments between them grew more frequent, fueled by Charles's growing emotional distance. One evening, after a particularly bitter fight, Sophia confronted him with the truth he had been avoiding. "You're still in love with her, aren't you?" Sophia demanded, her voice trembling with anger and hurt. "Lucy, you've never stopped loving her." Charles didn't deny it. He couldn't. "I don't know what I feel anymore," he admitted. "But I do know that I need to be there for my children. They're my priority now." Sophia stared at him, her expression a mixture of betrayal and resignation. "Then I guess this is it," she said quietly. "You've made your choice." The breakup was painful, but Charles knew it was necessary. His focus had to be on Lucy and the twins. There was no room for anything else. A new beginning. As the months passed, Charles and Lucy began to navigate the delicate process of co-parenting. It wasn't easy. Old wounds and lingering resentment often bubbled to the surface, but they both remained committed to giving their children the best possible start in life. Slowly, tentatively, they began to rebuild their relationship, not as husband and wife, but as partners in parenthood. Charles attended every doctor's appointment, marveling at the sight of the twins on the ultrasound screen. He helped Lucy assemble cribs, painted the nursery, and even accompanied her to a few of her photography exhibits. Each small act of support was a step toward regaining her trust. For Lucy, seeing Charles's efforts was both heartening and bittersweet. She couldn't deny the changes she saw in him, the way he listened, the way he showed up, the way he seemed genuinely invested in their future as a family. But she also knew that trust, once broken, couldn't be easily repaired. As the due date approached, both Charles and Lucy found themselves reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this point. They were two people forever changed by their experiences, one learning to atone for his mistakes, the other discovering her own strength. And though the future remained uncertain, one thing was clear: the arrival of the twins would mark not just the beginning of a new chapter, but the start of a story they would write together, one filled with hope, growth, and the possibility of healing. The arrival of new life. The first frost of winter painted the town in shades of silver and white, signaling the arrival of a season that carried both challenges and renewal. Lucy Carter's home was alive with quiet anticipation. The nursery was ready, her hospital bag packed, and every corner of her house seemed to hum with the promise of new life. Her due date was approaching, and with it, a blend of excitement and anxiety. Charles had become a steady presence in Lucy's life over the past months, though their relationship was still cautious and measured. He attended every appointment, helped her navigate the logistics of preparing for twins, and even stepped into practical parenting roles she hadn't expected of him. Yet, their conversations rarely touched the emotional wounds that still lingered between them. Lucy appreciated his effort but kept her guard up. Charles had been a hurricane once, sweeping through her life and leaving her to rebuild after his departure. Now he was trying to return as a calm, steady breeze, but Lucy wasn't ready to trust the weather. The call in the night. The twins decided to make their arrival earlier than planned. It was just past midnight when Lucy felt the first sharp pang of contractions. She had read all the books, watched all the videos, and thought she was prepared. But the reality was overwhelming. She fumbled for her phone, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts as she dialed Caroline. "Caroline," she gasped, her voice strained. "I think it's time." Caroline's calm voice steadied her. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, Lucy. Call Charles. He'll want to know." Lucy hesitated, the phone trembling in her hand. Despite their recent progress, the idea of relying on Charles in such a vulnerable moment felt daunting. But Caroline was right. He deserved to be there. When Charles picked up, his voice was groggy, but quickly sharpened with concern. "Lucy, are you okay?" "It's happening," she said, her words clipped as another contraction rolled through her. "The twins. They're coming." "I'll meet you at the hospital," he said without hesitation, already grabbing his keys. "I'm on my way." A test of patience. The hospital room was a flurry of activity. Nurses moved efficiently, monitoring Lucy's vitals and preparing her for delivery. Charles arrived moments after Caroline, his usually composed demeanor replaced with a mixture of worry and determination. He rushed to Lucy's side, his eyes searching hers for reassurance. "I'm here," he said softly, taking her hand. "You're going to be amazing." Lucy nodded, too focused on the mounting intensity of her contractions to respond. She squeezed his hand tightly, grateful for his presence despite her reservations. The hours stretched on, each one testing Lucy's endurance. Charles remained by her side, his voice steady and calm as he encouraged her through each wave of pain. Caroline stood nearby, her presence a quiet pillar of support. When the time came, the delivery room was a storm of motion and sound. Lucy drew on every ounce of strength she had, pushing through exhaustion and fear. And then, at last, the room was filled with the unmistakable cries of new life. "Congratulations," the doctor said, her voice warm with emotion. "You have 2 healthy babies, a boy and a girl." Tears streamed down Lucy's face as the nurses placed the tiny, swaddled infants in her arms. She looked down at their faces, perfect and serene, and felt a love so profound it left her breathless. Charles stood beside her, his own eyes wet with unshed tears. "They're beautiful," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Lucy, they're perfect." She nodded, too overwhelmed to speak. In that moment, as they gazed down at their children, the weight of their shared history seemed to fade. For the first time in months, they weren't 2 people haunted by the past. They were parents, united in awe and love for the lives they had created. Settling into parenthood. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and tender moments. Lucy brought the twins home to a nursery filled with soft light and gentle colors. She named them Matthew and Amelia, choosing names that felt timeless and full of hope. Charles visited often, spending hours holding the babies, changing diapers, and learning the intricacies of their needs. He marveled at the tiny fingers that curled around his own, the way Matthew scrunched his face when he yawned, and the soft coos Amelia made when she slept. Each moment felt like a gift, a chance to be present in a way he hadn't been before. For Lucy, motherhood was both exhausting and exhilarating. She navigated each day with a mixture of determination and vulnerability, finding strength in the quiet moments when she held her children close. Though she was hesitant to admit it, Charles's presence brought a stability she hadn't expected. He wasn't just helping, he was truly there, invested and attentive in a way she hadn't seen during their marriage. A conversation long overdue. One evening, as the twins slept peacefully in their cribs, Lucy and Charles sat together in the living room. The air between them was heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Lucy broke the silence. "Why did you come back, Charles?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with curiosity. "Why now, after everything?" Charles took a deep breath, his gaze fixed on the floor. "Because I realized how much I lost when I left," he said. "I thought I was chasing happiness, but I was running away. From you, from myself, from everything that really mattered. Seeing you again, seeing what you've built, it made me realize what a fool I've been." Lucy studied him, searching his face for signs of deception, but all she saw was sincerity and pain. "I'm not the same person I was," she said softly. "I've had to learn how to stand on my own, to rebuild after you left." "I know," he said, his voice filled with regret. "And I don't want to take that away from you. I just want to be part of your life, of their lives, if you'll let me." Lucy hesitated, her heart torn between caution and the faint glimmer of hope. "It's going to take time, Charles. I can't just forget everything that happened." "I don't expect you to," he said, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to prove to you, and to them, that I'm here for the long haul." A fragile new beginning. Over the next few weeks, Charles worked tirelessly to earn Lucy's trust. He attended every pediatric appointment, helped with midnight feedings, and even repaired the broken fence in her backyard. A small gesture that spoke volumes about his commitment. Slowly, Lucy began to lower her guard, allowing herself to believe that change was possible. For the twins, life was a tapestry of love and discovery. They were surrounded by a community of support, Lucy's friends, Charles's renewed presence, and the unwavering care of Caroline. Together, they created a world where Matthew and Amelia could thrive. And though the road ahead was still uncertain, one thing was clear. Lucy and Charles were learning to walk it together, step by step, with their children lighting the way. Embracing the future, winter had long since given way to the vibrant blooms of spring, and Lucy Carter's home was a testament to renewal and growth. The once stark nursery had transformed into a lively space, filled with laughter, tiny footsteps, and the joyful chaos that comes with raising twins. Matthew and Amelia had settled into their routines, their innocent giggles echoing through the house, a constant reminder of the new life that had reshaped everyone's existence. For Lucy, motherhood had been a profound journey of rediscovery. The pain of Charles' departure had gradually faded, replaced by a deep-seated strength she hadn't known she possessed. Her photography career flourished, each new project a testament to her resilience and unyielding spirit. She had embraced her identity not just as a mother or an artist, but as a woman who had overcome heartbreak to build a life filled with purpose and love. Charles Matthews, too, had undergone a transformation. The relentless drive that once propelled him to the top of the real estate world had softened into a more balanced pursuit of personal fulfillment. His relationship with Sophia had dissolved amicably, the two recognizing that their paths were no longer aligned. Instead of seeking validation in the whirlwind of ambition, Charles found solace in the quiet moments spent with his children and the gradual rebuilding of his connection with Lucy. A garden in full bloom. One warm afternoon, Lucy sat in her flourishing garden, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of bees buzzing from blossom to blossom. Matthew and Amelia played nearby, their carefree laughter a melody that brought peace to her heart. Caroline sat beside her, sipping a cup of tea and admiring the vibrant colors that now defined Lucy's sanctuary. "It's beautiful," Caroline remarked, her eyes tracing the delicate petals of a newly planted rose. "You've really created something special here." Lucy smiled, a contented expression that radiated the fulfillment of her journey. "It feels like a new beginning, doesn't it? Every flower, every new sprout. It's a reminder that no matter how harsh the winter, spring always comes." Caroline nodded, her presence a comforting reminder of the support system that had helped Lucy navigate the darkest of times. "You've come so far, Lucy. It's inspiring to see how you've turned everything around." As Lucy watched her children explore the garden, she felt a surge of gratitude. The challenges she had faced had not been in vain. They had taught her the importance of resilience, the beauty of self-discovery, and the power of love in its many forms. Rebuilding trust. Charles stood on the porch of Lucy's home, observing the lively scene before him. Matthew was chasing a butterfly, while Amelia reached out to touch its delicate wings. The sight filled him with a profound sense of responsibility and hope. He had come a long way since the days of his reckless decisions and the subsequent fallout that had left both him and Lucy in turmoil. He had spent countless hours reflecting on his actions, seeking therapy to understand the void he had tried to fill with superficial relationships. Charles realized that true fulfillment wasn't found in accolades or material success, but in the connections and bonds that grounded him. His journey to regain Lucy's trust had been arduous, filled with moments of doubt and hesitation, but each step forward had been a testament to his commitment to change. One evening, as the sun set in hues of orange and pink, Charles approached Lucy with 2 cups of tea. She was seated on the porch, cradling Amelia in her arms, while Matthew played nearby. "Thought you might like some company," he said softly, offering her a cup. Lucy looked up, her eyes meeting his. There was a softness there now, a mutual understanding that had been forged through months of honest conversations and shared experiences. She accepted the tea, her fingers brushing against his briefly, a gesture that spoke volumes. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the sky darken and the first stars appear. The air was filled with the sounds of nighttime creatures and the distant hum of the city. For the first time in a long while, there was no tension, no unresolved conflicts. Just two people who had found a way to coexist for the sake of their children. "Thank you for being here, Charles," Lucy said quietly. "For everything." He nodded, his heart full. "I'm grateful for the chance to be part of their lives. And for you, Lucy. You've shown me what true strength looks like." A new partnership. As spring turned into summer, the rhythms of life settled into a harmonious balance. Lucy continued to excel in her photography, her work gaining recognition beyond the local circles. She held exhibitions that showcased not just her technical skill, but the emotional depth that came from her personal journey. Each photograph was a narrative, capturing moments of beauty, resilience, and the intricate tapestry of human emotion. Charles, inspired by Lucy's dedication and creativity, began exploring his own interests outside of real estate. He enrolled in classes on sustainable living and community development, seeking ways to give back to the neighborhoods that had shaped him. His passion for building was redirected towards creating spaces that fostered community and well-being, a stark contrast to his previous focus on profit and expansion. Together, they embarked on joint projects that blended their strengths. Charles provided the logistical support and resources, while Lucy captured the essence of their initiatives through her lens. Their collaborations became a symbol of their renewed relationship, a partnership grounded in mutual respect and a shared commitment to making a positive impact. Embracing forgiveness. One afternoon, as Lucy reviewed the photographs from their latest project, a community garden initiative that brought together diverse groups of people, Charles approached her with a hesitant smile. "I've been thinking," he began, his voice tinged with uncertainty, "about everything that happened between us." Lucy looked up, her expression open yet guarded. "I've been thinking too, Charles." He took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. "I know I can never undo the past, but I want you to know how truly sorry I am for leaving you and for the pain it caused. I was lost, but being part of your life again has given me a sense of purpose I didn't know I needed." Lucy reached out, placing her hand gently on his. "Thank you for saying that. It wasn't easy, but I've learned that holding on to anger only hurt me. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment." Charles nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. "I understand, and I'm committed to being the father Matthew and Amelia deserve, and to supporting you in any way I can." Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement passing between them. It wasn't a complete reconciliation, but it was a step towards healing, a recognition of the past, and a hopeful glance towards the future, a celebration of growth. Summer brought warmth and long days filled with laughter and love. The twins thrived in their environment, their personalities shining through in their playful interactions. Matthew was curious and adventurous, always exploring and asking questions, while Amelia was calm and observant, finding joy in the smallest of details. To celebrate the completion of their first year as co-parents, Lucy and Charles decided to host a garden party in the very space that had become the heart of their home. Friends, family, and neighbors gathered, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of cheerful conversations. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the gathering, Lucy took a moment to reflect on the journey they had all undertaken. She stood with Charles, watching as their children played together, their bond a symbol of the resilience and adaptability that had defined their lives. "I never imagined we'd get here," Lucy said softly, her eyes meeting Charles. He smiled, a genuine expression that mirrored her own contentment. "Life has a way of surprising us. I'm grateful for every twist and turn that led us to this moment." They clinked glasses, a toast to the past, present, and the bright future ahead. The celebration was not just of their personal growth, but of the community they had built together, a testament to the power of forgiveness, love, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. Looking ahead, As the years unfolded, Lucy and Charles continued to navigate their unique relationship with grace and understanding. They supported each other's endeavors, finding joy in their individual successes and mutual support in times of challenge. The presence of Matthew and Amelia brought new dimensions to their lives, each milestone a shared achievement that reinforced their bond. Lucy's photography evolved, her work delving deeper into themes of identity, community, and the intricate dance between light and shadow. Her exhibitions became a platform for storytelling, each photograph a window into the lives of those she encountered and the landscapes she cherished. Her artistry was not just a career, but a means of connecting with the world and expressing the emotions that words often couldn't capture. Charles, too, found fulfillment in his new ventures. His work in sustainable development and community projects allowed him to give back in meaningful ways, fostering environments where people could thrive. His leadership style, once driven by ambition, had transformed into one of empathy and collaboration, qualities that endeared him to both colleagues and community members alike. Together, they championed initiatives that blended their strengths, creating community spaces that were both functional and beautiful, capturing the essence of human connection through architecture and photography. Their collaborations were a testament to the possibility of harmonious coexistence, a reflection of the balance they had achieved in their personal lives. A legacy of love. One crisp autumn evening, as the leaves painted the garden in hues of red and gold, Lucy and Charles sat together, watching their children play under the fading sunlight. Matthew was engrossed in building a small fort with his toy blocks, while Amelia quietly observed the dance of leaves on the breeze. "I was thinking," Charles began, his voice contemplative, "about how far we've come. It's incredible to see what we've built together." Lucy nodded, a serene smile gracing her lips. "It really is, and I'm proud of us for finding a way to move forward, to support each other, and to create something beautiful out of the chaos." They sat in comfortable silence, the sounds of their children's laughter blending with the rustling leaves. It was a moment of pure contentment, a snapshot of the life they had crafted through perseverance, forgiveness, and unwavering love. As the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Lucy reached out, taking Charles's hand in hers. "Here's to the future," she said softly, "to the memories we've yet to create, and the legacy we'll leave behind for Matthew and Amelia." Charles squeezed her hand, his heart full. To the future. And in that moment, surrounded by the love of their children and the beauty of the world they had nurtured together, Lucy and Charles embraced the promise of tomorrow. Their journey had been one of pain and healing, of loss and rediscovery, but ultimately it was a story of triumph. The triumph of the human spirit to love, forgive, and rebuild. Epilogue. Seeds of hope. Years later, Lucy's work continued to inspire and touch lives. Her photographs were featured in international exhibitions, earning acclaim for their emotional depth and storytelling prowess. She had published a book that combined her stunning visuals with narratives of resilience and community, a tribute to the journey that had shaped her. Charles's contributions to sustainable development had left a lasting impact on the communities he served. His projects had transformed neighborhoods, providing green spaces, affordable housing, and opportunities for growth and education. He was recognized not just as a business leader, but as a visionary committed to making the world a better place. Matthew and Amelia grew up in an environment rich with love, creativity, and the values their parents had instilled in them. They inherited their mother's artistic eye and their father's dedication to service, each finding their own paths while remaining connected through the strong foundation their parents had built. On the 10th anniversary of their first meeting at the hospital, a moment that had set their lives on a new trajectory, Lucy and Charles decided to host a reunion for friends and family. It was a celebration not just of their shared past, but of the enduring bonds they had formed through love and perseverance. As they looked around the gathering, surrounded by loved ones and the thriving community they had nurtured, Lucy and Charles felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Their lives had intertwined in unexpected ways, creating a tapestry of experiences that were both unique and beautifully connected. The garden, now a symbol of their journey, was in full bloom. The vibrant colors and lush growth mirrored the blossoming relationships and the enduring hope that had carried them through every challenge. It stood as a testament to what could be achieved when people choose forgiveness, embrace change, and commit to growth, not just individually, but together. As the night drew to a close, Lucy and Charles stood together, watching as the last guests departed under the canopy of stars. The twins, now older and more aware of their surroundings, joined their parents in the garden, their laughter a sweet reminder of the love that bound their family. "Look how far we've come," Lucy whispered, her eyes reflecting the starlight. Charles nodded, a contented smile on his face. "And there's so much more to come." Hand in hand, they walked through the garden, the seeds of their past now blossoming into a future filled with endless possibilities. Their story was one of transformation, proving that even amidst the deepest of pains, there lies the potential for growth, healing, and the creation of something truly beautiful. And as they moved forward, side by side, they carried with them the lessons learned and the love that had endured, ready to embrace whatever the future held with open hearts and unwavering hope. Epilogue. A legacy continues. In the years that followed, the story of Lucy and Charles became a source of inspiration for many. Their ability to navigate the complexities of love, loss, and forgiveness resonated deeply with those who knew their journey. Community leaders often cited their collaborative projects as exemplary models of sustainable and compassionate development, while artists admired Lucy's ability to capture the human spirit through her lens. Matthew and Amelia, growing up in an environment where creativity and social responsibility were highly valued, pursued their own passions with the support of their parents. Matthew became an architect, inspired by his father's dedication to sustainable living, while Amelia followed in her mother's footsteps, becoming a celebrated photographer whose work echoed the themes of resilience and beauty. The legacy of Lucy and Charles was not just in the projects they completed or the art they created, but in the lives they touched and the example they set. Their story served as a reminder that even the most fractured relationships could be mended through understanding, that personal growth often arises from the ashes of past mistakes, and that love, in its many forms, has the power to heal and transform. As they continued to grow individually and together, Lucy and Charles remained committed to fostering a life filled with purpose and joy. Their journey, marked by challenges and triumphs, stood as a beacon of hope for anyone striving to overcome adversity and build a life grounded in love, respect, and mutual support. And so, under the ever-blooming garden they had nurtured, their story endured, a testament to the enduring power of the human heart and the limitless possibilities that arise when we choose to embrace our true selves and the connections that bind us.